Mute your microphones, turn off your cameras. Hello, everyone, and welcome to our online event. We are Immigrant Services Calgary, and this is a specialized employment event. I'm just going to be starting off our presentation with a few administrative slides. So this program is funded by IRCC. So we humbly thank our program funder, and we are grateful that we can have the funding so that we can provide these free programs to our audience. A few reminders before we begin. I am going to please remind each and every one of you, please do mute your microphone and turn off your camera, as this event is going to be broadcast live on Facebook. No abusive language will be tolerated in this safe space. Please do not post any personal information in the chat box, as this is not a secure environment. Please save any questions that you would have about this workshop for the end of the workshop. Then you can type them into the chat box for the Q&A. At the end of this event, there will be a specialized evaluation link that is sent out to all registered members or all registered attendees. I humbly ask that you do provide feedback so that we can improve our workshops and constantly do better. I also want to request, I see that some people have registered under one name, but they are actually listed here as under another name or the name of the device. And so we do ask that you identify yourself and change your name inside Zoom so that we can understand who is attending this workshop, and that way we can provide you with better services. All right, so without further ado, I think I will formally start this. As I said, my name is Carlin, and I am a newcomer employment specialist at Immigrant Services Calgary. And this is a specialized online event about having a new career in the IT sector. And I would also like to say a special hello to the Facebook audience who is joining us live on Facebook. Today, we are seeing a large shift in the economic landscape of Calgary, and many professionals are changing their career and choosing to transition to a new industry. Some have chosen to go to tech careers in the IT sector due to the high demand for labor. We know that navigating this shift can be a challenge. And in response, we at Immigrant Services Calgary are committed to helping newcomer professionals in their career development. And we have created this event to provide information and guidance to people who are going through this very complicated career transition. Our guest speaker is Dr. Liau, who is the Senior Program Manager for Technology Programs at the University of Calgary's Continuing Education Department. Dr. Liau, the floor is now yours.
Thank you so much, Karen. Let me just share my screen. Okay, so it's my pleasure to be here today. Thank you, Immigrant Services Calgary. Just to give you a little bit of story, I came here maybe in June. And like many of the newcomers here, I don't have a job. I don't know a lot of people here in Calgary. And Karen was actually one of my career advisor. She actually shared with me, how to actually nail down the first job. And I think after a few weeks, and the second time I actually met her, I actually told her that I found a new job. And then after that, probably around half a year or more, and I shared with her that I actually came to get my second job, which is where I am here. So I'm currently the Senior Program Manager. So my role at the university is mainly to think about a few things. So first is, how do we actually make people to be able to transition or even find employment after they have actually taken some courses, especially in technology programs. And secondly is really like, the education sector is evolving very fast. I do know many people kind of like knows that we have been through a lot of these changes in a short time. So in the past, we have to go out and wait for taxi, and suddenly now we can just use our mobile phone to do a lot of things that we haven't imagined before. But there are a lot of people saying that, right, the education sector is still the same. and it's not. So later I will actually share with you more about what it is. So just a little bit of my background. So you could actually understand where I am actually from. So I actually studied engineering. So I got my bachelor degree and PhD. So when I talk about engineering, it's really hardcore engineering. So I'm actually researching in the high power. So we work with the high power circuit breaker, and I do the design, implementation, and also consultation. But after some time, I actually decided to transition into IT. So I'll let you know about my story. And I have actually spent 7 years in electrical and electronics engineering, and another 2 years as a researcher, where I'm actually working in Korea. So as you can see from the first picture on the top right, so this is where my university was, University of Liverpool. So some of you who are familiar with the UK, you can actually see the famous red building. So this is the mechanical engineering department. So I'm actually located on the right side. So this is really the white building. It used to be an award-winning building. So I was actually stuck there for 6 years. So if any one of you who are actually football fans, you would be very happy like me over the weekend, because Liverpool won 5-0 in the football match against Manchester United. Okay, so I actually spent about 2 years working as a research engineer in Korea. In the second picture, you can actually see this is a Changwon. So Changwon is really an industry city in South Korea. It's one of the top 8 city in South Korea. And after that, I also started my career as a lecturer and then a senior lecturer in a number of universities. So the picture that you see at the top right bottom is really in China. So I actually worked in China for about 7 years in my earlier part of my career. And this is also related to Liverpool because they are actually setting up a new school whereby they partner with a local university. And we have some types of like blended kind of like Eastern and Western university to come up with a new innovative ways of delivering education. So that's really about me in my earlier career. And after that, I also started my engineering consultancy company. So you can see a majority of my background is really in engineering. And later I became the head of department in charge of engineering and IT. So this is the first time where I started to really know about IT. So when I get into this, I found out that the market has shifted. So we get lesser and lesser number of students, and the industry is really like not doing very well. On the other hand, we can actually see a lot more opportunities in the IT sectors. So after I've actually worked as the head of department and look at the trend, and that time, cybersecurity was really hot. So I kind of like reflect upon myself. So where do I go from here? So am I going to stay and in this engineering field, which is dying? Or should I try to get into the field of IT? And the only thing that we have learned in engineering, for example, for those of you who are familiar, if you are taking engineering, you would take maybe 1 or 2 courses in programming. And normally you would do C programming or you do MATLAB programming, but nothing more. Okay, so we never go into the details of object-oriented programming, and we never go and develop a lot of this software. We are just like using coding to try to solve some engineering problems. So I think back in 2017, 2018, I was actually thinking, because that time I was also wondering that because I have actually got my education back in UK, and after leaving the UK, and you can see I spent majority of my time in Asia. I kind of like reflected that maybe Asia is not the place that I want to be. So I wanted to really find another place whereby I want to enjoy the life in the Western world. So that's why I started to apply to become a PR in Canada. And in 2018, I was really happy because this is where I got invited. But at that time, as you can see, I am still in the middle of my career. I don't know what's going on. I don't know anybody in Canada. So I came here for 1 week, make sure that I got my documentation and also apply for my PR card, stay here for 1 week, and then I left Calgary and then back to Singapore. And then hopefully that, I could try to land a job so that I can actually come when I get a job. So the fact is that it's not easy. So it's not easy for people to really try to find a job away from Canada. So as you can see from the slide, later in 2020, June, I decided to really come back and take a firm decision to leave everything behind Asia and take my one-way ticket, to Calgary. So that was really risky because you don't know what will happen, So this is really a period whereby I feel really lost because I have been really busy in my career. Like I like to work overtime and I work every day, even weekend. And when I actually left my job and came to Calgary, the first 2 or 3 months is like really free. I don't know what is going to happen. I don't have a job. And this is where I actually took part in some of the workshops, some of the networking events organized by a number of organizations. And very gladly, because of my past experience working in engineering, and of course, later I share with you that I also started to transition into IT even back in 2018, because I know in order for me to find a job in Canada, engineering will not work for me. So I'm trying to work out a plan. And that was the reason why, because of that particular plan or decisions that I made back in 2018, 2019, allows me to land my first job as a technical instructor in Canada, teaching cloud computing, okay, which is really in the field of IT. And later, around March 2021, I actually started my current job, which is at the University of Calgary. So just to give you some kind of like story. So this is really one of the stories that I actually stumbled upon when I actually go to LinkedIn. So I find this is really interesting. I don't know this person, Adriana, but it really hits me because where this is really the story that I think many newcomers have been through. It's like people are actually asking, we have been here, we are invited, we go through so many processes, sending our application, doing our medical, waiting for 1 year, 2 years, like myself. I need to take my IELTS test for 2 times, okay, because I didn't pass my English test first time, because when I take my first IELTS test, it was maybe after 10 or 15 years since I took my last exam. So after that, I decided to take my IELTS test again and then got a better score, which allows me to come. But the thing is, when a lot of foreigners or newcomers come to Calgary or to Canada, and we couldn't actually get the same opportunity. So I do agree. And some of the people actually come up with a terminological. So you are not getting the opportunity because you do not know the Canadian culture. Okay, so that's why we need to understand Canadian culture and try to actually blend into this culture in order for us to get the opportunity, which in some way I totally agree. Because as you can see for my example, before I came to Canada, I actually have worked in many different countries, which are not a place where I've been to. And I was lucky in the past is that in my previous job, I always get people who recommended me a job before I went to that country, except Canada. So Canada is the only country that I just took up the challenge to have my adventure here. So I think a lot of the newcomers want the opportunities. So I think I would like to share with you about my observation. So so one of the strategy that I actually took is really to try to connect with people from LinkedIn. So this is really the very old advice, but it's really effective. So I think don't be shy. So this is one of the strategies that I use. So what I actually found is that if you want to know a lot of the story of people, how to transition into IT, you may be able to find a lot of successful example. And Katie is really one of the person that I actually spoke to a few months back, I think in April, when I got my latest job. So I was actually curious because she was actually from US, and we had a chat, and she mentioned to me that she used to be working in as a chemical engineering in a firm, and she relocated to Calgary, and after that she couldn't find a job, and that prompted her to take up the courage to study IT, and she went into web development, later to specialize in mobile apps development. and the reason I was actually quite motivated is because, frankly speaking, web development, mobile development is also one of the things that I used to be interested, but I never got the opportunity to tell myself that I can actually get through it. So I always get too busy that I didn't really have the courage to really learn. And always I have a lot of imagination that in this field, there will be a lot of young people, they are really expert in coding. So how could I, who is actually getting older and older, be able to compete if I were to really start to go into this area in late 30 or late 40? That's why back in 2018, my idea is that, so since I am actually trained in engineering, so I may not be technically as good as people who are trained with many different types of coding or programming languages. So probably I would try to choose something that is not focusing too much on software development. Then my first choice was actually to look into more like engineering related IT field. So I dive into area like networking. As you can see, networking is really closely related to engineering. And also I look into the cybersecurity. So this is how I actually started to transition when I make my decision to try to go into IT. So I kind of like reflected on my own experience and look at what is really the field that I have opportunities before I decided to spend more time to get into the field. So just to let you know, one of the tips that I normally do is before I understand, I like to have an overview idea of what are the job opportunities. So I did this search yesterday. So I just typed Azure. So Azure, for your information, is Microsoft Cloud. So I just fixed to Calgary, and then I found there are 352 jobs that is actually related if you have some skill set about Azure. So I actually tried to play around with the keywords. So I typed AWS because AWS is Amazon Web Services. It's another popular cloud providers in North America. And if you do that, you can also see you have more than 300 plus jobs available in Calgary. And later I type in some other keywords like cybersecurity or CISSP. I get 150 plus, which is still good. But the thing is, this is only the jobs available in Calgary. So if you expand it to the whole Canada, you would easily find more than 1,000 jobs. However, if you look clearly, of course, there are some jobs that require a lot of experience. So for example, if you see lead full stack developer, so they may expect you to have 5-10 years of experience, but you may also find something that require less number of years of experience. So for example, I actually look at this. So by the name, you can actually see it's a software developer. You may think it requires a lot of coding, but when you look at what is actually indicated here, you can see here, they are actually focusing on people who likes to learn. They actually allocate 4 hours per week for professional development time. So this is really something that is actually quite common in the field of IT. You have to keep on learning forever and ever. Nothing stops, not like in engineering that I was in the past, whereby once I actually know about the basic principles of electrical and how things work, I can actually use similar knowledge for 10 years, 20 years. But such thing doesn't actually happen in IT. When I later kind of like started to learn, I found that right, things in IT change every few months. So if you really want to get into IT, so this is something that you may need to be kind of like familiar with, is there will be a lot of learning, a lot of these upgrading. And you can actually see they are also not requiring people to have really a lot of experience, because things changes so fast. Generally, with 1 or 2 or 3 years of experience, you could actually be able to find a lot of jobs. And in particular for this, they are actually working with Microsoft Power Platform. So for some of you who actually knows, is that right? So there are 2 ways of solving a problem in IT. One is you can actually start your own project and then you do all the code by yourself. And normally you can start with your open source kind of like development, or using different types of SDK. The other way is really what is so good that I like about Microsoft is they are trying to empower people to develop your own apps or software without requiring a lot of these skill set in coding. So this is really what they are actually looking at. You have another types of skills whereby you can use the tools like Power Platform to really develop some software without a lot of time in developing your own software. So as I share with you, my strategy of getting a job in Calgary is really simple. I only have 3 strategies. So the first one is because I was starting IT very late. My previous education was really done in early 2000. So I got my PhD in 2004. So based on today's standard, now it's 2021. Whatever that I've learned in 2004 would be outdated by now. So I started with taking certification exam. So depending on the area that I like, so you can actually see I try to get CCNA, which is really in networking, and then after that I try to take some of the cyber security certifications, and then try to crack the CISSP, whereby a lot of people may be aware. So I do a lot of LinkedIn learning. I do a lot of these YouTube learning, because I've been away a long time from studying. And once you get started, you will get excited, because I discovered there are so many things that is really exciting in the IT. And lately I kind of like find the data engineering, the cloud is really amazing. So you can actually see in my latest certifications, I actually invested more time in the cloud, which I think this is really a good investment, because if you ask me my own opinion, there are a lot of things that you can actually achieve if you are good in the cloud, and you don't need to invest in a lot of money to buy all the infrastructure. And there are a lot of services whereby allows you to do amazing stuff. And there are many services that you can do that. So I highly recommend. So recently I got my Microsoft Certified Trainer, and this is how I get. So the main reason of me getting a job as a program manager in University of Calgary is because they see I have actually got a lot of certifications, despite some of the competitors for the job actually have computer science kind of like background, but they hire me even though I have engineering background, because I have demonstrated that I have actually spent a couple of years to really go through the certifications in the IT. So this is one of the things that actually makes it to be one of my success in getting my interview, also for my first 2 interviews actually. So the second one, as I mentioned to you, is really to attend the networking sessions, participating in some of the free courses available. So something that I find is useful, especially in Canada, is that there are a lot of very great organizations doing all of this for free to help newcomers. So I have never seen anything like that in other countries. So as I mentioned to you, I've worked in many other countries, So there isn't a lot of support from the government, from the local organization to really help to support the newcomers. So I think this is really cool. So I personally have actually attended, whatever that you've seen on the screen here. I've attended a few events from Immigrant Services Canada. And also when I first came here, I actually joined the June CCIS Employment Communication Workshop. So this is where we have to wake up very early in the morning and then go through classes every day. And then they teach us how to write the CV, resume, and we have a guest speaker to really share with us about the culture in Canada, which I actually like a lot because I haven't had any opportunity to work in Canada prior. So that is really a good experience. And that also is good because as you know, when I came here, I was not having a job. So having a support and getting another 20%, in the class really feel that we really want to work together for our goals. And I think a good thing is that, right, because the economy changes, we found a lot of newcomers actually get a job. And later when I get connected back to CCIS, one of the person that attended the workshop also became the coordinator for CCIS. She shared with me recently a lot of people with IT background have no problem in finding jobs in Calgary. So this is something that is very positive. So I think if you decided to really venture into IT, I would think you have a lot of opportunities. And as you can see just now, I also work in Empower. So Empower is also another organization, non-profit organization, whereby they get the money from a lot of these multinational companies like Microsoft, RBC. So they funded Empower Canada to have free IT courses to people who are actually less than 35 years old. So they started in US, and then later you have similar thing in Canada. So what you could actually do is they will require commitment from the person. And then when you actually go through the courses, they have the program coordinator and instructor to help you, and a dedicated team to try to arrange interview and also to do recommendation for jobs. So if you are keen to really look for opportunity in IT, Empower actually has quite a huge presence in Canada. They also have offices in Calgary. So this is something that you could explore. So my third strategy is really to reflect upon myself. So I have actually made a decision to really leave everything back in Asia. So the reason why I actually say Asia is because I have actually been staying around in many different countries in Asia. So I don't know where my home is. But I want to make a decision to leave Asia and come to Canada. And I always ask myself, what do I need to achieve for the next 3 to 5 years? And when you're actually doing the job search, sometimes you see a job and then you ask yourself, are you happy if you are given this job? You may be happy for the first year because you are so excited you finally get a job after a long time of searching a job. But do you still have that types of kind of like motivation doing the same job? Or you are just trying to get a job for the sake of getting a job? Yeah, so this is something that I think as a job searcher, we may tend to forget about the long-term job that we want. And also, I always think about my strengths and weaknesses. So for example, one position posted in Calgary or in Canada may have over 200 people or 300 people applying. So I always think about myself that, how could I actually make sure the person actually get interested in interviewing me, and how can I actually become their first choice? So of course I have not really sent a lot of CVs or resumes. So I recall when I actually came here since June, I may have sent almost 30 plus resume, 30 plus. And it's strange because as you can see, I'm really not in the IT field. So my strength is really in education. So I keep on getting rejection because how do I know it's reject? Because I don't hear anything from them. So I've actually sent 30 plus kind of like a resume. I kind of like receive kind of like zero response. So I'm thinking, am I doing something right? Of course, I later realized that I was not really a strong candidate looking at my background because if I'm trying to apply for an engineer or IT job whereby they require 3 years, 4 years, 5 years of IT experience in working in a company, my experience is really zero, right? I have over 10, 14, 15 years of experience in higher education, and also another few years like being a consultant in engineering, but not really similar to the experience that they wanted to. So that's why I actually changed my strategy and to really focus more on education, because this is where I can actually show my strength. And my strengths also involve a lot of these past experience working in different countries, knows about different types of education model of different country. So I would really focus on spending more time to apply for these jobs rather to send a lot of quantities to resume after being rejected for over 30 times. So I don't feel this strategy works. So the good thing is once I've actually changed my strategy, so for the 2 jobs that I actually get, I was being told later that I was really the strongest candidate. So that's why I think it really inspired me that, when you want to go for a job application, make sure that you knows about the job, you knows that your skills and experience matches the job. And that will actually land you the job that you want and enjoy. And so my sharing is research and invest in yourself so I can do my own SWOT analysis. So not only the knowledge and skills, education, also your personal aspiration. So this is the 3rd strategy that works for me so far. And finally, I would like to share with you about the technology industry outlook. So I referred to the research from Deloitte. So you can actually see here, back in 2021, we are actually hit by COVID. So the 3 tech industry trends is really cloud computing. So this is the first one. The second one is artificial intelligence. And the third one that they're actually saying is edge computing. So if you want to see what is really the impact from these few keywords, so you can see from the full report, you can see in the link here, they have the key takeaways. So if you have time, you can go to read the whole report. But what you can actually see is if you are trying to get a job in IT, so this is really what people are looking for in the future or even from now. We always heard about digital transformation. So what is really digital transformation? So it's like we have a lot of companies. So the first digital transformation actually happens for all of the multinational companies because they have a lot of talents, they have a lot of this money to actually go on that. But the trend now is not only the huge tech companies are doing the digital transformation, the trend is now affecting a lot of the small and medium company as well. Because if you do not go through the digital transformation, you will be phased out. The company will be phased out. So it's simple as that. So this is the reason why when we are talking about digital transformation, we are no longer want to invest in infrastructure. People are actually moving into the cloud, and people are actually moving into data and data analytics capabilities to help the companies to make decision. And of course, you can see there are some cybersecurity as well, and as well as the business model transformation. So you can actually see there are a lot of things that is actually related to digital transformation. But the few keywords is really cloud computing, cloud infrastructure, data analytics, everything about this area. And if you are looking into the workforce, so people are actually trying to find ways not to have the manual process, to have advanced technology. As I mentioned to you, Microsoft is actually doing quite well by empowering people who are not expert in IT or computer science or do not have the coding skills to have the capability to also deploy or even design your own AI solutions. So this is really something that is happening. So just like when we try to think back in time, so let's say 20 years ago, if you know how to do a PowerPoint presentation, if you know how to use Microsoft Office, you can get a job. But now it's like we are going into a phase whereby, in the future, you are expected to know some tools whereby no longer we are using PowerPoint. People are looking at your skills, whether you know how to tell a story about data. So the two important kind of like presentation that you need to do is Tableau and Power BI. Okay, so it's really like how do you actually make use of the data, present it and analyze it, and then come up with a story. So this is really what we're actually seeing a trend. So can you actually see that many of these software have built-in AI capabilities? Even iPhone that we're using, after you have taken a lot of pictures, you get the reminder saying that, right, some of the pictures are actually auto zoom into the middle and then tells you the story of your memory. So all of these are already affecting our lives. So the thing is, we need to continue with the trend. And the last one is not really applicable if you are really in IT, because they are also talking about the supply chains and manufacturing processes. So I would like to share with you what are the opportunities that we can offer, especially from University of Calgary continuing education. So recently we have 2 successful projects with Microsoft. So that is also the reason why I actually get motivated to become the Microsoft certified trainer. So we work with Microsoft and RBC from June to September to offer free AI certifications to 6,000 people in Canada. So at the end of the project, we actually have over 7,000 enrollment and 87.8% of passing rate for the fundamental certifications. So this is really something that we are very happy with, because within less than 3 months, the whole project, just have less than a month to prepare. We are able to launch it, and not only to benefit people in Canada. As you can see, we are also having a lot of other people from other countries. And the other thing that you can actually see is that this is also quite surprising to me, is the culture here really focus on lifelong learning. You can actually see we have people even in the 40s or 50s or even 60s taking the course in AI. So I couldn't imagine in Asia. So in my own country, I don't think people that is over 30 years old would be motivated to learn. But in Canada, you can actually see here, it's like normal for them to really keep on upgrading. So we are seeing not only people in the IT sector, we are seeing a lot of people from different sectors are trying to learn about AI and also machine learning. So the second thing that we could actually offer is I like to really collaborate with people. So one thing is, for example, I always think that the reason why people want to get education is really to fulfill their aspiration. For example, to get a better job, to want to explore new knowledge, explore a new life. So what I see in education nowadays is that when I go to a school, there is less and less interaction with people. I mean, especially in COVID, whereby we move all the classes into online delivery, then the human touch disappear. So what I'm actually trying to focus now is how can we kind of like focus on the human connection? How do we actually provide a useful work experience? So a lot of people want to have a course that actually brings them really useful experience to apply the skill in their job, in a real project. So this is something that we are actually reflecting on. And one of the things that is we are also trying to encourage industry people. So they may not be the expert in IT, because we know that IT actually now affects every different jobs. So if you have actually some kind of experience For example, in business analysis or business intelligence, we are actually looking for instructor or even teaching assistants, whereby we want you to actually share about your experience to the classroom to our students. So these are some of the things that we can offer. And unfortunately, we don't actually recruit full-time instructor. I think in Canada as a whole, if you look at continuing education, the strategy is really we want to get people in the industry to be instructors. So it would be a short-term types of contract for the instructor. So with that, so this is what I would like to share with you all today. I hope all of this information will be helpful to you, and I look forward to hear from you if you have any question.
Yes.
Back to you.
Thank you, Dr. Liau. Well, I think I learned a lot about changing careers and different perspectives. All right, I know that there's probably going to be some questions, but firstly of all, we're just going to say goodbye to our Facebook audience. So we're going to turn off the Facebook Live feature. So bye, Facebook audience, and thank you for joining us. And